Hello and welcome, I'm SimUK and I like nothing better than a good turn-based military strategy title. And Unity of Command 2 from 2x2 Games, which is due out on the 12th of November, is certainly not a bad turn-based military title. In fact, it is probably one of the best turn-based military titles I think I've ever played, thanks to its crisp look and feature-rich gameplay style, and especially its unique and rewarding set of features. 2x2 Games have provided me with this key in order to review for you, so thank you for that, I really do appreciate it. It's nice to be able to review games that are perhaps not as well known, but should be. So back in 2011, say 2012, when it finally came to Steam, Unity of Command 1 was released. Now, I never actually played that game, but I have done some extensive research, and I know that it covered the Eastern Front and focused predominantly on Stalingrad. There were additional DLCs available. 2x2 Games have then spent a very long time developing their own bespoke 3D engine in order to produce Unity of Command 2. And it seems that that long development phase approach may very well have paid off. Unity of Command 2 focuses now on the Western Allies during the Second World War, and it has an impressive sized campaign. If you've ever played a turn-based military strategy game before, you will likely be familiar with the basics of this type of game. But what really makes this title stand out is the heavy focus on logistics and military positioning. It's a bit like an extremely advanced game of chess. Yes, in this game, logistics are the most important aspect. Without a clear and unimpeded logistics route to your front line, you will fail, and fail quickly. So learning this skill is critical to game success. I'm not going to mess you around, this is a really fantastic game. If you like this kind of thing, you're really going to like this. And the reason why I'm so confident to say that is that its abundance of new and unique features really make this stand out as one of the turn-based RTS titles that I've ever played, so I highly recommend it. Unfortunately, I have to mention that this preview copy that I have has had a few issues which may or may not be present in the full release, but there are so many good points that I can cover that will just mitigate any issues that I am about to disclose to you. And I also have a few additional game idea suggestions for the developers, but I'll leave those right until the end of the review. So the most significant issue that I've had was actually starting the game. Now I'm not sure if it's specifically game related issue, whether it's related to Steam or my PC specifically. Obviously they're still working on the game for release day, so there's probably a few updates that have been released, and maybe, bugs do occasionally sneak through. Now the issue that I've had is that Steam gets into a cycle of updating the game. It won't allow me to start the game until I've completed the update, but the update never finishes, it pauses and it starts again. Now I've opened the local files, and what seems to be happening is that the executable file within the game folder is constantly being written and then removed. So it took me about an hour to force this game to work each time I wanted to play the game. Every time I stopped to go and do something else and come back to it, I had to then sort of try and force it through. Now, as I say, it may just be because there were constant updates, and hopefully it's just a problem that I'm going to experience, and you'll never see this particular problem in the final release. I'm sure if it is an issue, they will address it and deal with it very quickly. I've watched an extensive set of videos from the developers. They did a live stream. They seem very approachable, very chilled out, relaxed, but very serious, interested and focused at the same time. I'm absolutely convinced that any issues that I've experienced will be fixed sooner rather than later. I have to say that the tutorial at the moment is pretty poor. In fact, I'd say it is very poor. It doesn't actually progress with your action, so you are expected to progress it manually. Now sometimes this adds to the confusion because you end up getting comments like, "Well done, you have weakened that enemy," even though you've not actually done that yet, because you're supposed to have done the 3 steps that were mentioned before it. But it's not really clear when you're supposed to stop advancing, do something, and then go back to it. So I think the tutorial needs a bit of work. It is definitely a preview version, so there's even There's even a specific tutorial focusing on HQ specific controls, which is really important because it's a totally new feature and it's a really important dynamic feature, but I can't find it. It doesn't seem to be there. So I'm sure in the full release the tutorial will be fleshed out more, and probably the HQ tutorial will be there as well, but I couldn't find it. And I've basically had to work out the vast majority of the game. I've had to work out myself, which, in addition to the hour-long loading issue that I've experienced, has kind of made things a bit difficult. So I'm not as perhaps clued up as I would like to be. I do have a pretty good understanding of the game, and I've got a tutorial coming out later today that explains everything I know, just to get people off to a flying start. But in all honesty, the game doesn't do a particularly great job of explaining itself. Some of the phrasing is somewhat convoluted. For example, in each conflict you can have a limit of about 5 resource dumps, but the tutorial never really explains this. And also there are a lot of units which have special abilities, and this isn't disclosed well or clearly identified either. So, for example, if you cut off the enemy's supply for 3 turns, they will no longer be able to attack you, but this isn't actually mentioned in the tutorial or in the game at the moment. Whether that's included in the full release, I don't know, but I would certainly hope that the tutorial is looked at, and maybe just some of the phraseology is changed for full release, let's hope. But don't let that detract you from what is an absolutely phenomenal game. This is such a great game, really engaging, really interesting. It's challenging, but it's also fun. So the game has evolved a great deal, and it's improved and expanded upon all that was revered in the original. Fog of War, which obviously for me makes the game more interesting and more challenging. Occasionally you have access to aerial reconnaissance, which allows you to gain intelligence on enemy positions, but it doesn't actually remove the Fog of War, so if you don't immediately attack that unit, there's a good chance they'll be reinforced or moved. Who knows what could happen. Conflicts can create rooted and injured soldiers, and if you drive along you can pick these guys up and gain even further intelligence further on into the Fog of War. This is at the cost of your own unit's mobility. Obviously you're having to handle prisoners, and I'm not sure if you can drop them off at the HQ, therefore making your unit able to move faster, but if that isn't a thing, I'd like it to be considered for future development. And it's fair to mention the HQ is another new and interesting feature. Each turn generates what are called command points, and these are limited. As you progress in the game and you perform well, you can increase the number of command points that you can have available to you. And command points allow you to apply one-off or regenerative special abilities. For example, you can mobilize foot soldiers, which allows them to move greater distances. You can reply units immediately via airdrops. You can reinforce depleted allies, or you can utilize special attack maneuvers, allowing you to break entrenched enemy lines. But this only happens, is only available to you if your units are within the HQ communication zone, and also as long as your logistics are unhindered, which can be hindered by the enemy, by the terrain, by the weather. I'll discuss that in a second. If not, then you need to move your headquarters closer to the front line so that you can communicate with your frontline units and allow them to have full control over the frontline battle. HQ has other abilities too. You have the ability to destroy or create bridges. This allows you to create dynamic routes or even remove attack routes from the enemy. You can drop supplies or paratroopers behind enemy lines. This allows you to disrupt enemy logistics and their resupply routes, and that makes them far easier to attack after about 2 turns. You also have bomb runs, and there's a few different types of bomb runs available to you. You can use these to weaken elite units or well-placed units, or just units that are in the way and causing you lots of problems. And I did mention there's a weather engine of sorts, and this can impede unit movement even more. If it's really bad weather and you're trying to move up through the hills, for example, it can get muddy and slow down their progress. So whereas they might usually have 3 hex moves, you'll be reduced to just 1. And it's another interesting dynamic to the game. Some of the terrain tiles can also impede your movement and possibly offer you greater defense or attack opportunities as a result. I did mention that some units have special abilities. Now, I'm not fully clear what and who these things are due to the lack of clarity and tutorials in the game at the moment, but you do certainly have the ability to bombard, suppress and even break dug-in enemy units. There are about 4 difficulty levels in the game. This includes a classic mode, which is basically the AI version, the AI from the original version, and there's 1 level which is easier than that and 2 which are above it. It certainly is a tricky game to master, but incredibly rewarding and challenging enough to make you think. The campaign is progressive, so any units that have sustained heavy losses in the previous conflict will start the next one in a weakened state. And there are many of the well-known conflicts included here, like the Bulge, Casino, Ruhr, Husky Offensive, just to name a few. And there's even a scenario editor available and a Steam workshop, which is obviously empty at the moment. I don't have a price for this game. The original is currently £12, including all DLCs, but that was quite a while ago. I suspect this game will probably be somewhere in the region of £20 to £30, and I think definitely if it's towards £20, this is an absolute steal. At £30, obviously you're going to have to be quite into a game like this, but if you are, then at £30, I think this is again a very good price, because the game offers such an incredible unique gameplay style. It's such a really good game. Please do check out my tutorial with a bit of gameplay in there. It'll probably help you further understand how good this game is, and not just based on my review comments here. Now, one of the things I haven't seen yet, and bear in mind I have had issues with the game, so I haven't had as much playtime as I would ideally have liked, but I haven't seen any units throw up the white flag yet. Now, it's possible to cut off an enemy's supply. It's possible to completely surround an enemy unit and have them cut off from all supply. They have no resources, no ammunition, no food, no water. You know, this is a unit that in real life would just throw up the white flag and say, okay, we give in, you know, we're going to a prisoner of war camp. That's what would have and did happen. Not always, but quite often, especially towards the end of the war. Now, I haven't seen that happen at all yet. I'd be surprised if it isn't in the game, but because I haven't seen it, I have to conclude that possibly it isn't a feature in the game. And if it isn't, I really highly recommend the devs consider having units just throw up their hands and say, okay, look, we don't want to fight, we give in. I think that would be more realistic. You just take I mean, you've already got the ability to take prisoners, so rather than taking stragglers and survivors, you could just take entire units. I mean, right at the beginning of the campaign itself, it does discuss that 90,000 soldiers did throw up the white flag, and that's how the whole scenario starts. So clearly it is a thing, and clearly they have considered it. So the fact that it wouldn't be in the game would be a huge surprise. I suspect it is in there, I just haven't come across it yet. But anyway, I'm short on time, so this review has not got as much detail in it as I would like, but I will be continuing to play this game. I will be creating a tutorial straight after this, so please do check that out too. Thank you so much for watching. This is a really good game, really highly recommend it. I'm not sure what the price is. If it's less than £30, then I think it's well priced. If it's less than £20, it's an absolute steal. So yeah, definitely keep an eye open for this if this is the type of game that you're interested in. And if you enjoyed this review, you know where the like button is. Thanks for watching, take care, goodbye for now.